it's not like the worst thing in the world to have, a fully paid off home that's your only investment, but there are much better things you can do that can accelerate you from the middle class.
Right. This is the biggest issue, right? Like, because you guys already know everyone who owns a home, if you are in that category, that probably for the majority of you is where you have most of your money, right? Here's the interesting thing, and most people don't look at it as an investment. So, I'll challenge you a little bit here. I mean, they're glad they're living in it and it's going up, but I don't think what they do is they look at their stock portfolio with a little bit more criticism than they do their actual home.
Right.
So I think this is a little bit of a mindset issue too. You guys all know most people, they invest in the stock market through a financial planner or wealth manager or something like that. They actually pay more attention to that. They watch it online and all this stuff, right? Meanwhile, their house is going up $1,000 a month. Like, and it's not even on their radar, right? And so next thing you know, if they're there a long time, there's a fair amount of equity for whatever reason. One, they're paying it down, but two, appreciation is doing its thing and inflation's doing its thing. So, so I think the first thing is if you started to look at, back to your point, if you treat it as your only investment, if you start to look at it as an investment, then I think you'd be more intentional and you start to take a look at, well, maybe if this is really, really working extremely well for me, and it has for my parents and has for all my siblings and has for all my friends and everybody else that I know, maybe I shouldn't consider something other than dumping my money with some financial planner that I don't meet with more than once a year. Like, it's just so obvious to me, but this one really frustrates me because, I mean, it's good that people have this kind of equity in their homes. That's really good, actually. It's what saved my mom. My mom's a hairdresser, and, her net worth is sitting in her home. And that home is paying for her care. Like, it's huge, right? It is her savings account. And for many of you guys don't think out that far, but the reality is the equity in your home is going to show up at some point in the biggest way that you know.
Yep. And then the next one is saving but not investing. So I think this is a big one for people. Like, I have friends that are in the middle class, I would consider, and they just save money, but they're afraid to put it in anything. Like, they have a bunch of cash they're sitting on. They're afraid to buy a rental property because they're afraid it'll go down. They're afraid to invest in crypto because it'll go down. They don't know enough about the stock market, so they just sit in cash. And if you've sat in cash over the last 5 years, your net worth has went down, even if it stayed the same or on paper went up.
Yeah, and by the way, so this isn't a black and white issue. So it's not you should save or not save, or you should invest or not invest. You should absolutely have cash on the sidelines for dry powder scenarios or emergency scenarios, and figure out what that is. I know people where it's just 1 month of income. I know people where it's 1 year or more. Like, so it's whatever you're comfortable with. But that's a strategy. You absolutely have to have what I would consider to be cushion. And if you're a real estate investor, obviously you have to have, like what we're doing right now, Ross and I, we are literally putting together our dry powder for this buying time. So there's a reason why you need cash. What Daniil's talking about is that you have a lot of cash and you think that is savings, or you think that that's investing, right? But yeah. It's a cost. There's a cost to it. You're making very little on it, and it's not keeping up with inflation. So if you're making 2% on your money, or even 1% in a savings account, let's say, I know you can move it to something and maybe make a little bit more. I get that. But even both those scenarios don't keep up with inflation. So the cost that things are going up expense wise, in the grocery store, and your rent, your food, whatever you want to pick, it doesn't really matter. Gas. That stuff's going up faster than you're saving. And I think that's the issue. So you got to be cognizant of what your savings account is making. what inflation is and what you're spending. And then from there, it's just simple math. Like, and you just want to beat it. You know, just a good rule of thumb for us is you want to be north of 5% on your cash, if you can be. North of 5%, you're going to be in the money. You know, if inflation's 2-3%, you're still going to be making more than inflation. So whatever that means to you, you know, so there's not a problem to have cash, but unfortunately the way to to do that is you have to actually pull it out. Now, when people hear the word invest, I think sometimes they get a little freaked out, right? They consider all this risk, but you can move it into products, you know, CDs or treasuries or things like that. Just be cognizant of what it's costing you of sitting there in a bank account, and that's why Robert Kiyosaki in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, I think the very first chapter is savers or losers. That's what he meant. He didn't mean you personally are a loser. He means that you're losing if you're sitting there in savings. And so there's a cost.
So the next one, and this is going to also ruffle some feathers, is relying only on your 401k for retirement. A lot of people, they just give their money to a financial planner. The 401k can make sense, especially if your employer is doubling it. But most people don't even self-direct those 401ks. So they just kind of assume they're going to be fine if they just keep putting X amount in every month.
Well, let's unpack a little bit of that. So self-directed means that you can put money into a 401k and get all the benefits, and maybe your employer matches and all that kind of stuff, and that's awesome. Self-directed means that you move it outside of their 401k plan into a self-directed 401k plan. It's like a bank, but self-directed means you get to invest it, right? So I think the system you guys all know is set up for you not to understand how to invest your money. Somebody else is better. So, you know, if you're going to take that position, then good luck. You know, and so we're trying to empower you to understand that these, if you know, and you should know that a lot of these people that are investing your 401k money are commissioned salespeople. Mm-hmm. Let me say that again. These are commissioned salespeople. So they're putting you I'm not kidding. This is exactly how it works. It's no different if you're going to buy a piece of jewelry and they're on commission. It's no different if you're going to buy a car and they're on commission. The difference is Wall Street's made it seem like it's so different, but it's not. Now, and so if you're sitting behind the desk and they're investing your money, what are you going to invest it in? You're going to invest it in things that make you the most money, the most commission. And so there's this whole underbelly going on behind the scenes of different products trying to get to those commission salespeople to offer them incentives to invest in their products. So it's a whole companies, and it's a system.